In the silent darkness of space, the starship Avalon glides toward a distant colony world, carrying 5,000 sleeping souls. Suddenly, its journey is violently interrupted. The ship plows through a massive asteroid field. Red alerts flash. The shields hold, but the impact triggers a cascade failure, like a single domino falling and knocking over countless others that races through the ship's systems, targeting a single hibernation pod. Inside, a mechanic named James Preston is ripped from his slumber 90 years too soon. This isn't just a glitch, it's the first sign of a catastrophic failure that has just doomed a man to live and die alone in the void. A disoriented Jim is greeted by a cheerful hologram that assures him everything is normal. It guides him through an automated orientation, promising a luxurious 4-month experience before arriving at Homestead II. The stakes are simple: prepare for a new life. But as Jim walks through the silent halls, a creeping dread sets in. The lights flicker on just for him, and the AI instructors speak to an empty room. The uncertainty is maddening. The ship feels less like a luxury liner and more like a ghost town. And if he's the only one awake, his promised new life is already over. Subscribe now so you never miss another story from the void. Jim's search for answers becomes a frantic tour of the colossal, empty ship. He races to the Grand Concourse, a stunning multi-level mall that flickers to life just for him, but finds no one. He tries to find a person in charge, a steward, the captain, but is met with empty offices and locked doors. His desperation leads him to the observatory, where he confronts the horrifying truth. The ship's AI calmly informs him they will not arrive at Homestead II for another 90 years. He isn't just early, he is a castaway, marooned in time with the rest of his life as the sentence. Clinging to a sliver of hope, Jim tries to send a message to Earth, pouring his heart out to a customer service helpline light years away. The ship's cold logic delivers another devastating blow. His message will take 19 years to arrive, and the earliest reply will take 55. His hope is extinguished. He wanders into an elegant bar and finally sees another person, a bartender named Arthur. But his relief is short-lived. Arthur is an android, programmed to serve and unable to comprehend that Jim's life is effectively over. The crushing weight of total isolation begins to settle in. Jim, a mechanic by trade, refuses to give up easily. He finds the technical manual for the hibernation pods and spends countless hours trying to force his own pod to put him back to sleep. He discovers the pods are like advanced alarm clocks. They are designed only to wake someone up at the right time, not to initiate the complex process of suspended animation. His desperation grows. He tries to break into the crew's quarters, first with tools, then a sledgehammer, but the reinforced door won't budge. Defeated, he tells Arthur he's destined to die of old age on the ship. But Arthur offers a simple piece of advice: stop worrying about what you can't control and live a little. Taking Arthur's advice, Jim decides to make the most of his gilded cage. He breaks into the luxurious Vienna suite, plays basketball on the ship's court, and orders anything he wants from the robotic chefs. But this life of forced leisure quickly sours into a deep despair. He wanders the ship naked, a bottle in hand, a ghost haunting the empty halls. This existential dread drives him to put on a spacesuit and step outside the ship, tethered only by a thin cable. He has traded one form of isolation for another, facing the vast, indifferent cosmos with his life hanging by a thread. Floating in the abyss, Jim deactivates his magnetic boots and drifts to the end of his tether, a single tear freezing on his cheek. He is a man on the edge of nothingness. Back inside, he walks into the airlock, ready to open the door without a suit, but he can't go through with it. He collapses on the floor of the hibernation bay, utterly broken. Then, his eyes fall upon a sleeping woman in a nearby pod, a beautiful blonde named Aurora Lane. Now, put yourself in his shoes. After a year of total solitude, he sees a chance for a companion, but he would have to steal her life to get one. Jim's lonely existence is now consumed by Aurora. He eats his breakfast by her pod and tells Arthur all about the sleeping girl. He sees the tragic irony of his situation. The perfect woman is right in front of him, yet completely out of reach. But then he remembers the hibernation pod. He knows he has the power to wake her, but does he have the right? He wrestles with this monstrous decision, his sanity hanging by a thread as he weighs his unbearable loneliness against the cost of another person's entire future. After a year of crushing solitude, Jim makes his choice. He shaves his wild beard and walks to Aurora's pod with his tools. With a tortured expression, he manually triggers the waking sequence. As the pod opens, he flees, leaving her to wake up just as he did, alone and confused. He hides the evidence, his desperate act committed with no turning back. Now he must face the woman whose life he has just destroyed and pretend to be her fellow victim, knowing that if she ever learns the truth, he will have traded his loneliness for her hatred. Aurora awakens to the same bewildering orientation. She wanders out into the grand concourse and finally sees him. Jim plays the part of a fellow victim, telling her they woke up early and are the only two people awake. The truth of their situation dawns on Aurora in the observatory. They have 89 years to go. Panicked, she insists they have to go back to sleep, but Jim explains that it's impossible. She is now trapped in the same nightmare he is, never suspecting that the man standing beside her is its sole architect. While Jim has had a year to process his fate, Aurora's grief is raw and immediate. She refuses to give up, searching the infirmary and beating on the crew quarters door with a sledgehammer, just as he once did. Realizing her efforts are futile, she begins to document her strange new life, describing Jim as a stranger with whom she is trapped. She interviews him to understand his story, and he explains he was a mechanic looking for a world where he could be useful. A quiet bond begins to form, but it's a connection built entirely on his deception. Aurora, a journalist, sees the 5,000 sleeping passengers as financial assets, but Jim sees them as people with their own stories. They begin playing a game, guessing the lives of the sleeping passengers, and a genuine connection sparks between them. Aurora reveals her dream was to be the first writer to travel to a colony and return a dream that is now dead. Seeing her despair, Jim tries to lift her spirits, and they start spending their days together, playing video games and laughing at the bar with Arthur. A fragile friendship is blooming, but with the potential to shatter the moment the truth comes out. Their friendship deepens into something more. Jim builds Aurora a model of the Chrysler Building to remind her of home, and she smiles at him from across the swimming pool. He finally musters the courage to ask her on a date, sending a note via a modified cleaning robot. They dress in fine clothes shoplifted from the ship's stores and have a beautiful dinner. Jim then reveals his biggest surprise, a spacewalk. This is his chance to give her an experience so magical it might make her forget their prison, and perhaps make him forget his crime. Outside the ship, floating against a backdrop of a starry nebula, Jim takes Aurora's hand. He asks if she trusts him, then deactivates their magnetic boots, letting them fall backward into the void, held only by their tethers. She stares in awe, tears in her eyes, and thanks him for the breathtaking experience. The moment is transformative. Back inside, they share a passionate kiss and fall into a deep and loving relationship, making a life together. Aurora writes that for the first time, she doesn't feel alone. They have found love, but its foundation is a lie that could crumble at any moment. For Aurora's birthday, Jim plans a special celebration. At the bar, Aurora tells Arthur, "There's no secrets between me and Jim." This innocent comment triggers the android's logic. While Jim is away, Arthur cheerfully tells Aurora how Jim spent months deciding to wake her up. And this is the exact moment where everything changed. Her world shatters. The man she loves didn't just happen to be there, he murdered her future to cure his loneliness. When Jim returns, she confronts him, and he confesses. The beautiful life they built was a lie, and now they are trapped together in the wreckage. Aurora's love turns to pure rage. She flees, screaming, "You took my life!" She attacks Jim in his sleep, beating him with her fists before grabbing a crowbar. He lies defenseless, and she finds she can't deliver the killing blow, instead hurling the tool at the floor. Their paradise is now a waking nightmare. As they live in tense, hateful silence, the ship itself shows more signs of decay. Their personal tragedy might soon be overshadowed by a much larger, more immediate threat to their survival. One morning, Aurora discovers that Jim has planted a massive living tree in the Grand Concourse. The moment is interrupted by a gruff voice asking who planted it. A third person has awakened. Deck Chief Gus Mancuso. Gus knows immediately that 3 pod failures means something is catastrophically wrong with the ship. He uses his crew authorization to access the bridge and discovers the diagnostic system is completely offline. He realizes the initial accident started a chain reaction of failures, a slow-motion disaster that has been unfolding for 2 years. Gus dispatches Jim and Aurora to manually check the ship's systems. In the hibernation bay, he quickly deduces that Jim woke Aurora. Before they can deal with the fallout, the ship's gravity fails in a violent lurch. Aurora is nearly drowned, trapped in a massive floating sphere of water in the swimming pool. The incident confirms Gus's fears. The ship is experiencing a cascade failure. A mission-critical disaster is imminent, and now all 3 of their lives are on the line. The small team races against time, but Gus suddenly collapses. They rush him to the infirmary, where the autodoc delivers a grim diagnosis. His malfunctioning hibernation pod caused fatal systemic organ failure. He has only hours to live. Knowing his time is short, Gus gives his crew ID band to Jim, telling them to fix the ship. He passes away peacefully, leaving Jim and Aurora to face the impending disaster alone. Just then, the ship plunges into red alert. They have the key to save the ship, but they are out of time and out of help. Red lights flash. Alarms blare. With Gus's ID, they race back to main engineering. They follow the trail of malfunctions to the ship's massive reactor. They find the source of the problem. A meteor strike from 2 years prior punched a hole through the ship and damaged the reactor control computer. This was the event that woke Jim. Now, the reactor is critically overheating. If they can't vent the built-up plasma, the entire ship and the 5,000 sleeping souls aboard will be vaporized. They have found the problem, but fixing it will be far more dangerous. Jim replaces the damaged computer module, but a new problem arises. The exterior vent door is jammed. The only way to open it is from the outside. Jim must perform another spacewalk, this time into the direct path of a plasma inferno. Before he leaves, Aurora begs him to come back, admitting she can't live on the ship without him. At the vent, he discovers the door won't stay open on its own. He has to hold it while Aurora releases the blast. He is choosing to die to save the ship. Aurora pulls the lever. The fire erupts. It engulfs Jim, rips him from his boots, and snaps his tether. He is thrown into the void. His suit is leaking air. Aurora launches a desespera de rescue. She catches his broken tether just as her own pulls taut, inches from her grasp. She pulls him back, but it's too late. The autodoc declares him dead. Refusing to accept this, she uses Gus's ID to override the system, initiating every resuscitation procedure imaginable in a frantic, desperate bid to bring back the man she loves. Against all odds, it works. A heartbeat flickers on the monitor, and Jim gasps back to life. As he recovers, he realizes the autodoc, a medical pod that can place a patient in perfect stasis to halt injury, can function as a single perfect hibernation pod. He tells Aurora she can have her life back. She can go back to sleep and wake up at Homestead 2 to write her story. He is willing to endure the crushing loneliness once more, this time for good, to undo the wrong he did to her. The ultimate choice is now hers: reclaim her old dream or embrace the life she had found with him. Aurora makes her decision. Jim sits at the bar, turning a ring over in his fingers, when she appears in a beautiful red dress. She chose their life. He slides the ring on her finger, and they begin again, truly together this time. 88 years later, the ship's crew awakens as the Avalon approaches Homestead 2. They step into the Grand Concourse, not to find a sterile mall, but a breathtaking forest, teeming with birds and plants. Jim and Aurora didn't just survive, they lived a full, beautiful life, turning their prison into a paradise.